The story unfolds with a scene two guards are carrying a girl and state to the emperor, "We've brought her here." The emperor tells the guards, "Leave us alone." The guards agree with the emperor. Meanwhile, the girl gulps. She also starts thinking about how there used to be a saying, "Nothing ventured, nothing gained." However, she has no idea that following that saying would lead to her death. The guards further mention to the girl, "Get on your knees when you speak to the emperor and bow down low." This statement makes her flinch. We then learn that 3 months ago, during the 21st century, a disease began to spread rampantly. Citizens were no longer allowed to leave their homes or meet up with other people. The girl was on her way to the convenience store for some supplies when she was hit by a truck. It was an extreme example of what happens when you ignore the warnings about leaving your home. This made the girl realize not to ever ignore those emergency alert texts. Even though she thought she was a goner, when she opened her eyes, she was at the bottom of an old well. While inside the well, the girl yelled out for help. However, she quickly realized that no one was around her. As she crawled outside of the well by herself, she wondered, how is there not a single person nearby? She also wondered, how remote is the place that I'm at? She further believed that, once again, she could only rely on herself. Once the girl was nearly outside of the well, she looked up and noticed a group of villagers staring at her with pitchforks and torches. This scared the girl and made her scream. The villagers also got scared and screamed back. After a while, the villagers managed to pull her out of the well. They also started to chatter and murmur amongst one another, wondering what she was doing in the well at this time of night and if she was a spy. The villagers further realized that the girl couldn't even speak properly. Meanwhile, the girl looked down at a water puddle and wondered, what's going on? The person she was looking at through the water puddle wasn't her. The girl then slapped herself in the face and wondered if she was dreaming. This reaction startled the villagers and made them confused. They also believed that there was something wrong with her. One of the concerned village elders then asked the girl, "Do you remember how you ended up in the well? Or your name, at least?" Upon hearing these questions, the girl started to wonder, is this what I think it is? She also believed that the villagers, who looked like foreigners dressed in strange clothing and were all speaking a language she had never heard of, yet somehow she could understand them, must mean that God is taking pity on her and giving her another chance. She further decided that if that's the case, then she'll come up with a cool name that suits this new world. The girl then touched her chest, cleared her throat, and introduced herself as Ellenfiela Ruth Dioria Irinus River Marguerite. Once she was done introducing herself to the villagers, she felt smug and believed that it was the perfect name for a fantasy setting. Meanwhile, the village elder felt sorry for her and told her, "You must have hit your head." We further learn that, from this day forward, the girl became known as Leafy. The villagers speculated that someone had hit her on the head and thrown her into the well, or that she had hit her head really hard when she landed at the bottom of the well. They had all kinds of theories, but the one thing they all had in common was the belief that she had hit her head. Leafy was happy about starting a new life, but there was really nothing for her to do in the village. So, she began to gather information and came across some mind-blowing news. As Leafy was walking through the village, she heard one lady villager questioning another villager. "Have you heard that His Majesty, Emperor Pillion, has been meeting up with a young lady a lot?" The lady villager also asked. "Do you think they'll get married?" The other villager confirmed. "Do you mean Lady Regina?" Meanwhile, Leafy pricked up her ears and became confused. She dashed towards the two villagers, calling out, "Wait!" She further requested them to tell her more, as she realized that the two names the villagers mentioned were two characters from her favorite novel. We then learned that the two characters from the novel were the elegant but straightforward young noblewoman, Cyril von Regina, and the notorious emperor known as the Tyrant of Blood, Pylon de Urt. The novel was about an outspoken female lead and a tyrant emperor. Leafy believed that the two of them, Emperor Pillion and Lady Regina, are a match made in heaven. She's the only one who thinks that. We also learned that, in the novel, Priscillian, Emperor Pillion, wasn't even close to being the male lead. He barely made any appearances, and they actually never got together in the novel. Upon realizing this, Leafy believed that the one good thing about this whole situation is that she ended up in her favorite novel. Now that she knew this information, The next thing she did was to make money. Knowing the story meant that she knew the future of this world. Using all of her knowledge of the novel, she began to make money as a fortune teller. And so, rumors of Leafy the fortune teller spread far and wide. Just as she was on her way to becoming the richest person in the empire, she was dragged to the imperial palace. We are then back in the present, and see Leafy bowing to the emperor while being speechless. One of the guards states to Leafy, "The emperor wishes to know your name." This statement makes Leafy flinch. She nervously introduces herself to the emperor as Ellenfiela Ruth Dioria Iris River Margaret. This introduction makes everyone in the room go silent. Upon noticing this reaction, Leafy starts sobbing and reintroduces herself as Leafy. The emperor then questions Leafy. "Are you aware of your crimes?" This question makes Leafy shout out, "I'll never tell prophecies about the imperial family ever again. Or about Duke Regina's family. Oh. Or about Marquis Spade's family either." Leafy sniffs, her voice trembling. She also believes that if she can't talk about those three things, then she'll hardly have anything left to tell fortunes about. She further decides that she shouldn't care about this right now since her life is on the line here. The emperor then tells Leafy, "You act as if you are already aware of everything." This makes Leafy confused. She also wonders why she hears a child speaking and if there is someone else here besides the emperor and his imperial guards. Leafy then mentions to the emperor, "I know quite a lot." The emperor states to Leafy, "I understand." Meanwhile, Leafy wonders what's going on as she notices the guards speaking to the emperor from behind a curtain. She also wonders what they're talking about. All of a sudden, the guard opens the curtain. Upon the guard opening the curtain, Leafy stares at the emperor and notices that he has brilliant blonde hair and deep red eyes that look like rose petals dipped in blood. Upon noticing these features, she realizes that this is the emperor known all over the continent as a tyrant named Pylon Dirt. As she gulps, she wonders, why is Pylon a child? Pylon then says, "In that case, tell me when I will be turning back to normal." As Leafy continues to stare at Pylon, Leafy starts thinking about how she had always wondered why Pylon hardly ever came up in the later half of the novel. She also starts to wonder if this was why. We further learn that Leafy had thought he didn't appear anymore because he wasn't the love interest. However, now that she knows it's because he turned into a kid, she wonders where the writer is, since she wants answers. Pylon then states to Leafy, "I guess you don't know." He also commands the Imperial Guard, "Kill her." The Imperial Guard agrees with Pylon and starts to take out his sword. Meanwhile, Leafy jolts up, shocked and confused. She gasps and nervously tells Pylon, "This isn't it." Pylon sighs and mentions to Leafy, "I think it is." Leafy quickly states to Pylon, "I'll look into how to undo your curse right away." She also requests him, "Give me some time." This makes Pylon speechless. He raises his hand with 5 fingers up. Upon noticing this, Leafy starts to wonder if he means he's giving her 5 weeks, 5 days, or 5 hours. Suddenly, Pylon folds one of his fingers. This makes Leafy realize that he means 5 seconds. As Pylon continues to fold his fingers, Leafy tells him, "Hold on." She also starts to wonder what she should do, as she doesn't want to die and leave all the money she made behind. Leafy further decides that she needs to think of something quick. Leafy then shouts out and mentions to Pylon, "You have to be with me." This statement confuses Pylon, and he questions her for more clarification. Leafy replies, "I cannot tell you right away how such a terrible thing happened to you, sire, but I believe it to be a curse. If you would like me to use my ability to see the future, I must be at your side in order to find out what this is." Upon hearing this response, Pylon asks Leafy, "How did you know it was a curse?" This question makes Leafy think about how she was just making stuff up, but she guesses that she was right. Leafy then states to Pylon, "There is a group of dastardly villains out to get you." The Imperial Guard also tells Pylon, "The aristocracy has been behaving suspiciously." Leafy further thanks the Imperial Guard. She also starts thinking about how the Imperial Guard made her think he was scary because of how strict he was with his questions earlier. Leafy then says to Pylon, "You must allow me to stay by your side until I find out more about this curse, away from the prying eyes of other people. This will take many days, so I cannot tell you exactly how long it will be." But you must keep me alive. The harder the problem, the longer I must stay nearby in order to find the answer. Leafy also wonders if this should be enough to convince him not to kill her. Pylon then questions her. Are you not just saying whatever you can think of to survive? This question makes Leafy flinch and gasp. As Pylon glares at Leafy, he also asks her, How am I supposed to trust you? Leafy responds, Did you not call me here because of the rumors you heard about Leafy the fortune teller? Therefore, I must conclude that your situation is dire. As soon as something happened to you, the court physician must have examined you first, and you must have gone to see the priests at the temple too. Since none of them were able to help you, you must have asked for me as a last resort, right? Upon hearing this response, Pylon continues to stare at Leafy with his blood-red eyes. This makes Leafy shudder, and she believes that tyrants really are a different breed. Pylon then starts to tap on his chair and begins thinking about what Leafy just said. Leafy notices this and believes that, judging by his reaction, she must not be that far off. Leafy also decides that she needs to finish things off. She then mentions to Pylon, Actually, I know about what you did a month ago with Regina. This statement makes Pylon pause. He also asks her for an explanation. As Leafy gulps, she replies, As Lady Regina boarded the ship to be part of a delegation to an allied kingdom, you gave her a bracelet made with red flowers. There was an event at the imperial palace that day, but you snuck out. In return, Lady Regina gifted you a pair of cufflinks. I knew about what had happened to you, but I, Leafy the fortune teller, wouldn't dare impose on your majesty's privacy, so I kept it a secret. We also learned that what Leafy just described was a clandestine meeting between Pylon and Regina. Only the Imperial Guard by Pylon's side knew about the Emperor sneaking out of the palace that day, and there was no way for the conversation on the ship to be overheard. We further learn that Pylon treasured those cufflinks so much that he stowed them away somewhere safe and never even wore them. This was Leafy's favorite chapter, which is why she remembers it so clearly. Leafy then states to Pylon, Upon Regina receiving the flower bracelet, she commented that it was the color of her eyes. Before Leafy is able to continue, Pylon interrupts. This is enough. This reaction makes Leafy believe that Pylon must be embarrassed. As she's snickering, she starts thinking about how there's no way she wouldn't remember a chapter about her favorite couple. She is also aware that this was actually their last scene together, but she had no idea it was because the Emperor had been cursed. Pylon then mentions to Leafy, It's almost as if you were there. Leafy lifts her hands and agrees with him. She adds, My prophecies are usually like that. Suddenly, she gets a glimpse of a scene in her head. This statement makes Pylon smile. Leafy notices him smiling as well, and she's beaming with happiness. She bets that he won't kill her now. She also wonders, why else would he make such a face? Pylon then calls Leafy, Miss Last Resort. Upon hearing this statement, Leafy raises her hand and states to him, Your loyal last resort is reporting. She also wonders what he's going to do to her. Pylon then asks Leafy, What of the future where I am back to normal, and you are still alive? This question makes Leafy shiver and sweat like crazy. She also starts to quiver and tells him, It's still unclear. This statement makes Pylon mention to her, If it takes you too long to see, then your future might become unclear as well. We then transition to the next scene, where we learn that Leafy is thankful that she made it. Leafy is thankful that she made it out alive. When she got dragged to the palace, she was sure that she'd be killed, but now she knows that she survived somehow. The knight then states to Leafy, I am the only person who is aware of Pylon's condition right now. He adds, I suppose you are the second. As Leafy chuckles, she tells the knight, I understand. We also learn that Leafy has been assigned to the room right next to Pylon's bedroom. We further learn that the knight's name is Millard and that he filled her in on the details. It's been 10 days since Pylon turned into a child. Just as Leafy expected, they called in the court physician and a priest to examine him, but no one could come up with a solution. Those who saw the younger version of Pylon were given a potion that erased the past 2 hours of their memory as they left the room. There are mages in the Earth Empire as well, but they weren't called on. It was mostly because the memory-erasing potion wouldn't have worked on a mage. But that wasn't all. First, Pylon knows how to use magic, He was the most talented mage in the whole empire. And if he was cursed, then there was no way any other mage could help him. On top of that, all mages are registered with the Mage Tower, but that place is currently under Archduchess von Deus's control. Since the Mage Tower and the Archduchess could be behind the Emperor's curse, they weren't allowed to examine Pylon. Millard then says to Leafy, "After turning into a child, His Majesty lost the ability to use magic. He said that it is because he seemed to have been returned to the time when he was 4, before his mana had even awakened." This statement surprises Leafy, and she asks Millard, "When did Pylon's mana awaken?" Millard mentions to Leafy, "It was when he was 9. Upon hearing this response, Leafy replies, "In that case, if he just waits for 5 years until he turns 9, then that would be terrible, right? This is why I'm here, to prevent such a tragedy." As Leafy is sweating and looks joyful, Millard is doubtful of Leafy and is speechless. Millard then says to Leafy, "The Mage Tower and Archduchess von Deus are the most likely suspects, but since they have yet to do anything even after 10 days, it may be that they don't know." Millard continues, "When the curse will activate, we're managing imperial affairs for now, but the nobles are starting to ask questions because the Emperor suddenly cancelled all of his official appearances. Now that 10 days have passed since any of the servants have seen him, I'm certain rumors are starting to spread. You must be aware of this already, Miss Leafy, but His Majesty has many enemies." This statement makes Leafy chuckle in her head. We also learn that Millard is referring to what happened in the process of Pylon ascending the throne. We further discover that Pylon killed all 4 of his siblings in order to become the Emperor. The late Emperor suddenly began to cough up blood and died of a heart attack after a one-on-one meeting with Pylon. The Blood-Stained Throne was another title for the current Emperor Pylon. Millard then says to Leafy, "His Majesty has said that there must be a clue inside of the palace. He stated that it would be impossible for him to be cursed unless a lot of time and planning went into it. So, he believes that there may be some sort of item that is amplifying the curse inside the palace." Leafy agrees with Millard and states to him, "We have to find it." Millard agrees and questions Leafy, "Can you see where it is located?" This question makes Leafy worried. She then raises her hand and, as she's squinting, tells Millard, "It's all so unclear. I can't see a thing." Millard sighs upon seeing Leafy's reaction and mentions to her, "For now, we plan to announce that Pylon has gone on vacation. This should buy us some time to look for this item." Leafy agrees with Millard and states to him, "I understand." We then switch to the next scene, where we see Millard, Pylon, and Leafy in the palace garden. As Leafy is looking around the garden, she questions Millard, "How did this place get so overgrown?" Millard tells Leafy, "It hasn't been taken care of in a while." Leafy asks Millard, "Why not? I'm sure it used to be pretty." Millard confirms with her, It was the late Emperor's garden." After all, suddenly Leafy realizes that she shouldn't say such things in front of the person rumored to have poisoned the former Emperor. All of a sudden, Leafy hears a crashing noise, which surprises her. When she looks around the garden, she notices Pylon kicking a flower pot and asks him nervously, "What's wrong?" Pylon mentions to Leafy, "I'm just checking under the flower pot." Leafy questions Pylon, "Why do you have to knock it over?" However, before she's able to finish asking her question, Pylon states to her, "There's no need to look in the same place twice, so I'm making it clear. It would be a waste of time if we looked in the same places again." Upon hearing this statement, Leafy acts stunned and tells Pylon, "You are so clever." As she reaches out to help Pylon, she mentions to him, "I'll look as well." Pylon shouts at Leafy and states to her, "This is my job." He adds, "You have to see if you can sense the curse." Leafy starts to feel awkward and tells Pylon, "I understand." She also mutters to Millard. Pylon gets to do all the fun stuff. Suddenly, everyone starts to hear footsteps approaching the garden. Upon hearing the footsteps, Leafy lunges at Pylon to protect him. Millard also asks, "Who goes there?" "No one is allowed to enter this place without the Emperor's permission." However, he gets interrupted, and the stranger states to Millard, "I was on my way to the palace when I heard a commotion here, so I stopped by. I see Philip's greenhouse is being destroyed by hooligans." Meanwhile, Leafy flinches as she realizes that the stranger is actually Archduchess von Deus. We further learn that only one person in the Empire holds that title, the one and only older sister to the late Emperor, Ivka von Deus. A man with a mustache behind Deus then says, "My goodness, I cannot believe the late Emperor's once beautiful greenhouse has been so neglected. This place is an important asset of the imperial family. We must hold a meeting with the aristocracy and raise our objections to His Majesty at once." Upon hearing this statement, Deus responds, "There's no rush, Count. The whole empire knows that the Emperor is far too busy these days. As his loyal subjects, we should not add anything to his grievances. He is so occupied that he has no time to make any official appearances, and perhaps that led to him collapsing from overworking. I heard he will apparently be going far away on vacation soon, so I came by to see how he was doing. But now I see that the late Emperor's greenhouse is being destroyed, and I really don't know who I should be talking to about this matter. Can you tell me what is going on? What is your name?" This response makes Leafy flinch. She introduces herself to Deus. Deus mentions to Leafy, "I understand." She adds, "I thought I saw a little boy knocking over the pots in here." Deus further asks Leafy, "Could you step aside? I would like to speak with him." Leafy gasps and states to Deus, "He is only a small boy who is acting his age. Please chide me instead." Deus questions Leafy, "Do you mean to say that you will take responsibility for destroying my brother's only greenhouse?" This question makes Leafy sweat and worry. Hadar then becomes confused and asks Leafy, "Are you the fortune teller?" Deus also questions Hadar for an explanation. Hadar replies, "Oh yes, she's been the talk of the Empire recently. She tells prophecies on the street, but they say she's really accurate. She foretold a palace event getting postponed and knew who would win the sword fighting tournament." Upon hearing this response, Deus asks Hadar, "Is that true?" Deus also leans closer to Leafy, which makes her flinch. She further questions Leafy, "What might be the reason for such a popular fortune teller like you to be in the imperial palace with a blonde child hiding behind you?" Leafy tries to reply back to Deus. However, before she's able to, Pylon pats Leafy on the shoulder, which surprises her. Pylon also steps forward to reveal himself to Deus. Deus quickly notices Pylon and becomes surprised. Meanwhile, Pylon just stares back at Deus as they continue to stare at each other. Leafy becomes confused and realizes that sparks are flying between them. Suddenly, Pylon sighs and hugs Leafy. This action shocks Leafy. Pylon also starts to shake and tremble and states to Leafy, "Deus is scary." Upon hearing this statement, Leafy becomes confused and realizes that it seems like Deus isn't aware that the child is Pylon. She also wonders, what am I supposed to do? Hadar then leans forward and tells Deus, "The child looks so much like Pylon." Deus confirms with Hadar. "Does he really?" Hadar explains to Deus. "The child is a bit more delicate than Pylon, but they really do look alike." As Leafy continues to stare at Pylon, this statement makes her realize that clearly Deus didn't know Pylon as a child. Meanwhile, Pylon is staring back at Leafy while squeezing her dress. Upon Leafy noticing Pylon's reaction, she nods back at him. She also yells out to Hadar, "Actually, this boy is the Emperor's child." This statement shocks Deus. It also confuses Pylon. Hadar becomes confused as well and mentions to Leafy, "Pylon isn't even married." Leafy yells back to Hadar, "Pylon had a child out of wedlock." This statement makes Hadar gasp. Deus also confirms with Leafy, "Is this child the Emperor's son?" As Pylon continues to grip onto Leafy, Leafy confirms with Deus. "This is true," she adds. "The reason I am here is to serve the young master." Deus states to Leafy, "I don't believe that Pylon ever had a woman he was interested in." She also asks her, "Is this why he's gone on holiday?" Leafy tells Deus, "This is correct." She adds, "Pylon has gone to meet this boy's mother." Upon hearing this confirmation, Pylon yanks Leafy, which causes her pain. Leafy then changes her statement and mentions to Deus, "Actually, she died." Leafy further realizes that keeping her alive would make things complicated. Deus then questions Leafy, Is the reason Pylon hasn't attended all of those events these past 10 days because of the sudden arrival of this child and the news of his lover's death? She also questions her. Is this the reason Pylon is on holiday to visit her grave? As Leafy gives Deus a thumbs up, she shouts out, "That's right! You got it!" Meanwhile, Pylon slumps onto Leafy. Deus further questions Leafy. Why did Pylon leave the boy behind? Leafy nervously states to Deus. He said that it's for the boy's own good. This statement slightly confuses and surprises Deus. Meanwhile, Leafy covers her mouth and realizes that she stuttered. She also hopes that Deus doesn't realize that she's lying. As Deus frowns, she sighs and tells Leafy, "It looks like Pylon is going to treat his own son the way he was raised himself." She then starts to rise back up. Meanwhile, Leafy guesses that Deus believes her and reaches down to grab Pylon. This action shocks Pylon. Once Leafy is holding on to him, Pylon starts to shove her to break free. Leafy notices this and mentions to Pylon, "Stay still." Pylon sighs and eventually gives in by hugging Leafy. He also starts to feel humiliated. Meanwhile, Leafy states to him, "You're a good boy." Deus further becomes speechless. After a while, Deus asks Leafy, "What is the boy's name?" This question makes Leafy hesitate. Eventually, she tells Deus, "His name is Perry." Deus confirms with Leafy if the name really is Perry. As Pylon hears that the boy's name is Perry, he glances at Deus. Upon hearing this confirmation, Deus replies, "All right then. Next time, I will greet you properly, Your Highness. Also, do remember that this is a place you cannot survive in unless you grow up to be strong." This response makes Pylon speechless, and he just glances at Deus. Once Deus is gone, Pylon hugs Leafy again. This action surprises Leafy. She also becomes pleased and starts to believe that Pylon must like his new name. Meanwhile, Millard becomes pale and is speechless. Leafy then winks at Millard and questions him. "Did that go well?" As Millard continues to stay pale, he asks Leafy back, "Do you have any idea what you've done?" This question confuses Leafy, and she tries to respond back to Millard. However, before she's able to, Pylon interrupts her by calling her by her full name. This causes Leafy to feel chills. Pylon then turns his head towards Leafy and glares at her with his blood-red eyes. While he's glaring at her, he questions her. "Is this what you foresaw in your vision?" Leafy asks Pylon back for more clarification. She also starts to wonder what he means by vision. Suddenly, Leafy realizes what Pylon means and nervously mentions to him, "Exactly. That's right." She further believes that this is perfect since Pylon just has to think that she foresaw all of this. Pylon then starts to smile back at Leafy. Leafy notices this reaction, and once she does, she grins back at him. Meanwhile, Pylon chuckles and states to Leafy, "I saw a vision of you losing your head. Maybe I can see the future too." This statement makes Leafy very scared. Pylon further reaches his hand out and pats Leafy's neck. This action causes Leafy to flinch. Leafy then starts to feel chills going down her spine. Meanwhile, Pylon starts to pat Leafy on the neck and says, "All right. We'll have to see what your future holds." We then transition to the next scene, where we are introduced to a new character named Viscount Ura. As Viscount Ura rustles through some papers, he states to a mysterious man, "It seems like Deus has already seen Pylon." The mysterious man confirms with Ura that this is right. He adds, "According to Hadar, they ran into him in the late Emperor's greenhouse." This confirmation shocks and surprises Ura. He also shouts out to the mysterious man, "Pylon has forbidden anyone from entering that place." Ura further sits back in his chair and starts to think. The mysterious man then tells Ura, "They said Perry has grown up outside the palace until now." Upon hearing this statement, Ura starts to smirk and replies, "Then he must be incredibly naive. That means I may be able to manipulate the boy into granting me a place at his side." The Emperor left all of the power to a boy who is barely 4 years old. That must mean that he has already decided on his late lover's son as his heir. Ura also starts thinking about how the tyrant Pylon never hesitates to point his sword at his vassals and believes that, however it turns out, he's quite the romantic. Ura further mentions to the mysterious man, I can't miss this opportunity to influence state affairs. What do boys his age like these days? As the mysterious man grins, he responds, since Prince Perry has lived outside of the palace, I imagine he must like ordinary things. So why not start with something that piques every child's curiosity? This response makes Yura smirk while looking at the object that the mysterious man has suggested to him. We then switch to the next scene, where we see what's happening 5 days later at the imperial palace. Inside the palace, Viscount Yura calls out to Pylon and kneels down in front of him. As he's kneeling in front of him, he offers him a gift and shouts out, I have brought this for you. Upon seeing the gift, Pylon becomes angry and confused. He also grabs the gift and throws it across the room. This action confuses and shocks Yura. The camera further zooms in on the gift, and we find out that the gift is a rattle. Yura then crouches down to grab the gift and is sad since Pylon didn't accept his gift. Meanwhile, Pylon is very angry and feels like Yura has insulted him. Leafy further approaches Yura. Once she's close to him, she clears her throat and asks him, how many presents like this do you think His Highness receives on a daily basis? She adds, I'm saying that it's boring. As Yura is teary-eyed, he questions Leafy. Is that true? Leafy confirms with Yura that it's true, so next time he should bring a rattle covered in pink diamonds. This confirmation surprises Yura, and he questions Leafy. Do you have any idea how expensive pink diamonds are? However, before he's able to finish asking his question, Leafy interrupts him and states to him, it has to be pink diamonds. Pylon also glares at Yura from behind, which causes him to tremble and shake in fear. Yura also starts to sob and sigh as he's aware that he can't afford pink diamonds. After that, Yura leaves the room. Once he's gone, Pylon mentions to Leafy, they bring me terrible gifts like that, but all you can think about is money. Upon hearing this statement, Leafy replies, Your Highness, how could you look down upon me like that? This is all a ruse to show the nobles how sophisticated your tastes are and to keep them from trying to ingratiate themselves with you so easily. That's my big plan. This statement makes Pylon speechless. He then shakes his head in disappointment and tells her, never mind. Meanwhile, Leafy realizes that Pylon didn't get angry. She also supposes that all these changes have tired him out. We further learn that when Leafy first came with Prince Perry, Pylon was very upset. Pylon had said to Leafy, I was trying to tell you that you should say he's just a relative of mine. However, Leafy believed that Pylon looked so different from her that saying they were relatives wouldn't have made any sense. In the end, Leafy felt wronged, and Pylon ended up giving her a grace period. Surprisingly, the situation started getting better for them. No one had any suspicions about the sudden appearance of the prince, and the fact that he looks exactly like Pylon just made it more believable. Thanks to Leafy telling everyone that the poor prince is his father, Pylon was able to keep using his own bedroom too, and so, Pylon no longer has to hide in his own palace. However, the one downside is that all these nobles keep showing up, trying to buy his favor. But other than that, everything seems to be going well. According to the rumors, Perry is seen as a tragic prince. The story goes like this. His mother went into hiding because she was worried Perry would be used as a tool if anyone found out he was the son of the emperor. She hid the boy from her lover as well, and when she passed away at a young age, fortune teller Leafy, who was her friend, couldn't stand for the injustice and took the boy to the imperial palace to meet his father. Leafy isn't the one who came up with this story. This story was created thanks to the wild imagination of all the servants and nobles. All Leafy did was reinforce their delusions. We are then back in the present and see Pylon speechless while sitting on the couch. As Leafy is smiling, she questions Pylon. Isn't this much better than those 10 days you spent hiding in your own palace? Pylon tells Leafy, thanks to you, I have become a man who had a child out of wedlock and a piece of garbage who let his lover die. Upon hearing this statement, Leafy starts thinking about how even when Pylon is grumpy, he's still cute. She also reacts in shock and asks Pylon, is this because of Surel? Pylon questions Leafy back. What does Surel have to do with any of this? This question makes Leafy giggle, and she starts thinking about how Surel has everything to do with it. We further learn that the novel described Pylon as taking a liking to Suro because they had similar childhoods. He could empathize with her. Leafy then asks Pylon, "Maybe we can ask Suro for help when she gets back?" As Pylon turns away from Leafy, he mentions to her, "I don't want to involve that girl in this." This statement makes Leafy squeal since he referred to Suro as that girl. She also thinks that this is a sweet way to call her. Leafy further believes that her favorite couple was canon after all. In the novel, Pylon then mentions to Leafy, "It will be a while until Suro comes back." He also questions her, "Are you saying you won't be able to solve this until then?" This question makes Leafy pause. She also chuckles and hesitantly explains to Pylon, "Of course, it won't take that long." Upon hearing this explanation, Pylon states to Leafy, "If I still aren't normal by the time Suro returns, then you'd better get ready to say goodbye to your head." This statement makes Leafy tremble. Suddenly, someone starts to knock on the door. One of the servants then enters the room. Once inside, he bows and tells Pylon, "Deus has sent you a message." Pylon questions the servant, "What is the message?" The servant mentions to Pylon, "She says she will be holding a welcome banquet for you." This statement confuses and surprises Pylon. We then move to the next scene, where we see Millard telling Pylon, "We should have more knights to guard you." Pylon mumbles to Millard, "This means you're saying that I'm too weak." Upon hearing this statement, Millard tells Pylon, "You will be attending an official event as the prince, so you must be wary." Millard adds, "I'm not confident in my ability to protect you by myself." Meanwhile, Leafy slightly laughs and believes that Millard has his work cut out for him. We also learn that the sudden announcement of this welcome banquet has everyone at the palace, including Millard, working double time. We further learn that once Pylon came of age, he turned into the most powerful mage and was able to withstand any attacks from the nobles. But right now, Prince Perry is only 4 years old and is unable to use magic. This makes it the perfect opportunity for Perry to get ambushed by the nobles. Leafy then starts thinking about how, in other words, Perry needs to have more knights protecting him. But since Pylon doesn't trust anyone, he doesn't want any more people surrounding him. Meanwhile, Millard requests Pylon to listen to him. However, Pylon just ignores Millard. Suddenly, Leafy becomes determined and reassures Millard. "Don't worry," Leafy adds. "I will help protect Pylon." Upon hearing this reassurance, Pylon becomes shocked and scared. He also sighs and mentions to Millard, "Find a few more skilled knights." Millard quickly agrees to Pylon's order and states to him, "I understand." As Millard is leaving, he bows to Leafy to thank her for helping him convince Pylon. Leafy notices this and starts thinking about how Millard thinks she said that to help him. She also believes that she can't tell him the truth, as it's too humiliating for her. Leafy further starts to feel bitter and guesses that she helped, and that's all that matters. We then learn that while there may have been a document signed by the Emperor saying that he entrusted Perry with everything, both the nobles and the citizens of the Empire weren't ready to accept that. As far as they know, Perry is just a normal kid who grew up outside of the palace. This made them wonder, how would he be able to handle state affairs? Due to this question, Leafy is aware that before the nobles agree to overturn the Emperor's decree, they need to ally themselves with some of them. This is why Perry has allowed for a few nobles to meet with him. But since there were too many for him to meet individually, it was only natural that Deus's idea of a welcome banquet would be accepted by everyone. A festival was supposed to be held in the capital as well, since the loyal citizens also had to welcome Perry. But the real intention behind the welcome banquet was clear. It wasn't to welcome Perry with open arms but to try and flatter the prince and manipulate him into making the decisions they wanted for state affairs. As Leafy continues to think about the situation, she knows that besides Deus, no one has come to meet with Perry since that day. She also feels like Deus might have something up her sleeve. However, Leafy is aware that there's no way of knowing for now, so she guesses that she should focus on the present, which is to make Perry look nice for the banquet. We then switch to the next scene, where we see the fashion designer questioning Pylon. "What do you think about this color?" The fashion designer's assistant adds, "I believe red suits him." The fashion designer further tells Pylon, "Blue seems to suit you as well, and we could put you in any color imaginable." Meanwhile, Pylon is uninterested and has no expression on his face. We then learn that since this is Perry's first official event as the prince, they need to make sure he looks the part. This is why they have hired a super popular fashion designer who is nearly impossible to hire. As the fashion designer is laughing, she further mentions to Pylon, "I will make you the greatest outfit you have ever seen." Upon hearing this statement, Leafy starts to nod her head and thinks about how everyone is so enthusiastic. She also supposes that this is because they're dealing with such a cute client. The fashion designer then asks Leafy, "Do you have any suggestions regarding the outfit?" We also learn that everyone keeps asking Leafy for her input because she was seen as the prince's nanny, since she was always by his side. Leafy doesn't mind this either. Pylon then states to Leafy, "I have no intention of looking cute." As Leafy is rummaging through some of the fashion designer's items, she mentions to Pylon, "Cuteness is your greatest weapon." This statement angers Pylon. After a while, Leafy finds a red tie and puts it on Pylon. Once she's done putting it on him, he starts to examine it. Meanwhile, all of the maids start to blush and gasp due to how cute he looks. Leafy's heart also starts to skip beats because of Pylon's snow-white skin, shiny soft strands of golden hair, eyes glittering red like rubies, and because of Pylon's pouty little lips. Leafy further believes that if cherubs were real, then this is what they would look like. Meanwhile, Pylon becomes angry and tells Leafy, "You're treating me like a toy doll." This statement makes Leafy believe that Pylon is a bit more like a fallen angel. She also mentions to him, "You are as pretty and cute as a doll." Leafy further starts to twitch and fidget. All of a sudden, Leafy grabs some ribbons, as she can't resist dressing Pylon up. She also starts to put various ribbons onto Pylon to see which one looks the best. As she continues to put ribbons on him, Pylon starts to get even more angry. He also states to Leafy, "If you've lost your mind, then you should get out." However, Leafy yells back at Pylon and disagrees with him. She adds, "I cannot leave until I have found the accent piece that will make you shine." Upon hearing this statement, Pylon grabs onto Leafy's hood. He further starts to grip onto her hood and says, "Don't tell me you're going to say this was part of your vision too." Leafy pushes Pylon away and tells him, "I'll say it again, cuteness is your greatest weapon." Pylon questions Leafy, "How many times do I have to tell you that I don't want that?" Leafy replies, "Please reconsider, Your Highness. Cuteness triggers a protective instinct. In other words, it increases your chances of survival. When humans see cute little animals, they instinctively want to protect them, right? Elephants think that humans are cute, so unless they are threatened, they don't harm humans. They actually try to protect them." Pylon asks Leafy, "What's your point?" As Leafy is clenching her hands, she explains to Pylon, "Right now, the nobles are all waiting for the moment to strike and influence state affairs through you." Leafy adds, "You can defeat those hyenas with your cuteness, which will help you protect your right to the throne and rule over the empire and beyond." However, this explanation just angers Pylon even more, and he screams at Leafy, "Get out!" He also starts to throw the accent pieces at Leafy and yells at her, "I thought you might have some great plan. I can't believe it was this." He mentions to her again, "Get out!" Once Pylon is done throwing the accent pieces and letting his anger out, he starts to huff and pant. Meanwhile, Leafy just starts to giggle. As Pylon continues to catch his breath, he screams at Leafy, "Your mouth is the problem." Leafy pouts back at Pylon and states to him, "I only speak the truth." This action angers Pylon again, and he yells at her, "There you go again with your lies." Leafy then tells Pylon, "I studied politics." She also decides that now is her chance and attempts to put something on Pylon's head. Meanwhile, Pylon becomes dazed and confused. Leafy ends up becoming successful and puts cat ears on Pylon's head. Once she's done putting them on, her heart starts to skip beats again, and she starts thinking about how he looks like a golden kitten. She also starts to wonder about who brought in all these cute accessories. She knows that he might be a kid, but he's still the prince, and with the emperor gone, he's the most powerful person in the empire. Leafy then asks the maids, "Who brought in the heirs?" Upon hearing this question, one of the maids hesitantly raises her hand while being speechless. Once Leafy realizes which maid brought in the ears, she gives that maid a thumbs up. The maid gives Leafy a nod back in agreement. This makes Leafy realize that even though the two of them just met, the maid and she have bonded immediately. Pylon then tosses the ears off his head and screams at both of them. "Get out!" We then switch to the next scene, where we learn that a few days have passed and that it's finally the day that everyone has been waiting for, except for Pylon. The day of the welcome banquet. As Leafy and Pylon are entering the welcome banquet, Leafy starts to smile and becomes amazed to see all of the nobles who have attended. We also learn that the servants of the imperial palace did their best to make this the most luxurious welcome banquet imaginable, as if they're trying to hide the emperor's absence. Other than the aristocratic society nobles who wished to hold the emperor in check, there were also nobles who were loyal to the empire and its ruler. So, the servants wanted to make the occasion as grandiose as possible to prove that the emperor was still in control. The aristocratic society may also be happy about the scale of this banquet. So long as they were able to manipulate the throne, the more powerful it was, the better. Leafy further states to Pylon, "You should really look for a loyal noble to rely on tonight." Pylon tells Leafy, "I will do no such thing." As Leafy clenches her hand, she tells Pylon, "It's not a bad idea to get closer to a few nobles in order to get a closer look at the aristocracy." We then learn that Pylon had so little trust in other human beings that the only noble he was close to was Suril. He's so capable and talented that he's been able to last this long by using his magic abilities. But now that things have changed, Leafy believes that it would be a good idea for him to look for a loyal vassal. Pylon states to Leafy, "A noble who would swear fealty to a kid can't be trustworthy. And shouldn't you be looking for the cursed item instead of asking me to find a loyal subject?" Upon hearing this statement, Leafy pouts and mentions to Pylon, "I guess so." She also adds, "I think the search would go much more smoothly after you've gathered a group of trusty vassals and secured your standing." This statement makes Pylon sigh. Meanwhile, a noble approaches Pylon and tells him, "I have prepared a small gift for you to welcome you to the palace." Pylon waves his hand and mentions to the noble, "This isn't necessary. It isn't my birthday, nor is it a national holiday." The noble states to Pylon, "It is only a small welcome present." Pylon tells the noble, "Small gifts are always followed by requests. If you really want to welcome me, you can aid me while my father is absent." This statement surprises Leafy, as she thought that she just saw Pylon make a really weird face. Meanwhile, Leafy overhears some of the nobles whispering about how if Perry keeps maturing in such a way, then the future of the empire looks bright. They add, "We can already see his potential as a wise ruler." Upon overhearing these whispers, Leafy starts to laugh in her head since she knows that Pylon and Perry are the same person and are already in charge of the empire's future. Suddenly, Leafy gasps as she notices Deus approaching them. Once she's close enough, she greets Pylon and mentions to him, "I'm finally able to greet you officially." We also learn that though Pylon never had any vassals to assist him, it was determined that a 4-year-old child wouldn't be able to do everything on his own. Most people seem to expect Deus to become regent. Deus further bows to Pylon and apologizes to him for not showing him the appropriate amount of respect when they first met. This statement makes Pylon speechless. After a while, he reassures Deus, "It's fine. You don't need to apologize." As Deus smirks, she says to Pylon, "You must be so overwhelmed by the sudden burden placed on your shoulders. The passing of your mother must have been difficult on its own. But now His Majesty, your father, is absent as well. Please let me know if it all becomes too much for you, Your Highness. I am your family, after all." This statement surprises Leafy and makes her realize that Deus is the sister of the late emperor. So she would be related to Pylon too. Leafy mumbles to herself. So she would be related to Pylon too. That would make her Pylon's great aunt. Pylon ends up hearing Leafy mumble this statement, which causes him to glance at her. Leafy notices Pylon glancing at her in silence, which confuses her. Pylon then smirks at Deus and replies, "Thank you, great aunt, but I will try to make it work on my own." This reaction shocks Deus, and she continues to just stare at Pylon. Deus also clears her throat and thanks Pylon for being so familiar with her. She adds, "If you ever need me, I will be here for you as your great aunt." Pylon states to Deus, "This is very reassuring, but I heard that you said this to my father. If you want to survive, don't rely on anyone but yourself. All you have to offer is your imperial blood, so use that to your advantage. This statement makes Deus speechless. Pylon further confirms with Deus. Didn't you say last time that I won't survive unless I grow up to be strong? Meanwhile, Leafy starts thinking about how it's gotten really hard to breathe. Deus then starts to smirk and laugh and tells Pylon, I will do my best. As she walks away, she tells Pylon, I believe you will do very well. Once Deus is gone, Pylon slumps into his chair and mentions to Leafy, talking to the Archduchess is exhausting. Upon hearing this statement, Leafy points at herself and states to Pylon, You should talk to me instead. Pylon tells Leafy, Talking to you gives me a headache. Leafy mentions to Pylon, I understand. She also requests one of the maids to give her a cold glass of lemonade. Once the glass of lemonade arrives, Leafy offers it to Pylon and states to him, It helps with headaches. This action makes Pylon speechless. After a while, he ends up accepting her offer and snatches it from her hand. All of a sudden, Leafy notices Millard bustling and murmuring with one of the guests. This makes her wonder, what's all the commotion about? Pylon then wags his finger to call Millard. Millard notices this and approaches Pylon as he's walking over. Pylon questions Millard. What's going on? Millard responds, One of the knights we picked to stand guard tripped on the stairs outside and hurt his leg. I told him to go home, but he insists on staying by your side, Your Highness. While Pylon is sipping on his lemonade, he tells Millard, This is impressive loyalty. The knight further approaches Pylon and shouts out, It is only a twisted ankle. I request the honor of guarding you till the end. Upon hearing this statement, Pylon mentions to the knight, You have a different sword. I saw you with another one earlier today. This statement surprises the knight, and he asks Pylon for more clarification. He also hesitantly states to Pylon, It is the same sword. Meanwhile, Leafy wonders if it is a different sword. She also thinks that it looks the same to her. Pylon then turns his head away and agrees with the knight. You're right, it's the same sword. The knight shouts out and thanks Pylon. Pylon tells the knight, Quiet down. Meanwhile, Leafy glances at Pylon and notices his expression. Suddenly, one of the nobles shouts out, I am so glad to hear that you have returned to the palace in good health. I am Viscount Glumov. You must have had such a hard time growing up outside of the palace. You lost your mother at such a young age, and His Majesty left you here all alone as soon as you arrived. What a heartless father! If it is all right with you, Your Highness, you may call me father instead. Upon hearing this statement, Leafy becomes stunned and believes that Glumov just got a ticket for the express train to hell. Meanwhile, Pylon starts to get angry and cracks his lemonade glass. Leafy then gasps and can't believe Glumov just insulted the Emperor as a heartless father in front of Pylon, and that he wants him to call him father. She also believes that she hasn't even heard of Glumov's family, so he must be from outside of the capital. Leafy is further aware that people like this tend to get their very lives edited out of the story, and really hopes that he survives. Glumov then shouts out, I too grew up without a proper father figure, and so I can relate to you better than anybody. As Pylon grits his teeth, he states to Glumov, This is enough, and commands him to leave. However, while Glumov is sniffling, he shouts out, There are countless heinous rumors about your father. They call him a heartless monster who would slaughter people easily. This statement makes the other nobles whisper and mumble to one another. Glumov further shouts out to Pylon, I will stand tall and protect you like a tree, able to withstand any storm. Upon hearing this statement, Pylon stands up in anger. This causes Glumov to jolt up. He also asks him, What's wrong? Meanwhile, Pylon gives Glumov a very angry look. Pylon then shouts at Millard, Hand me a sword! This statement causes Millard to flinch. Meanwhile, Leafy guesses that Glumov's life is over. Millard then nervously hands his sword to Pylon. Pylon grabs the sword from Millard and starts to approach Glumov while dragging it on the floor. As Pylon is struggling to carry the sword, Leafy becomes confused. She also starts to laugh but stops herself, deciding that she shouldn't laugh at this moment. Once Pylon is close to Glumov, he tosses the sword in front of him. This action makes Leafy wonder, how does he plan to kill him? Meanwhile, Pylon is blushing while huffing and panting. Pylon further shouts at Glumov, "Draw that sword and kill yourself with it." This statement makes Leafy call Pylon a genius in her head. Meanwhile, the nobles whisper to one another, "It's like father, like son." Pylon then shouts at Glumov, "Insulting my father right in front of me is no different from insulting the throne." Glumov tells Pylon, "This was not my intent." Pylon mentions to Glumov, "If you had no idea your words would come across that way, then you should have kept your mouth shut." Meanwhile, all of the nobles start to whisper and murmur around them. Leafy further starts thinking about how this is bad. Leafy approaches Pylon and states to him, "You shouldn't spill blood on such a happy occasion." Pylon explains to Leafy, "Glumov insulted my father." This explanation makes Leafy think about how Glumov really did insult the Emperor without realizing who he was talking to. But even with that in mind, he really behaved too rashly. She also smiles at Pylon and replies, "But still, it wouldn't look good to be so violent when everyone came here to welcome you. How about you forgive him just this once, since you're so generous?" Glumov further starts to quiver and tremble in fear and requests Pylon, "Please forgive me." Leafy then whispers to Pylon about what he should do instead. This suggestion makes Pylon happy. Meanwhile, Glumov starts to feel chills and becomes confused. After that, Pylon agrees with Leafy and states to Glumov, "I suppose this is not the time for spilling blood. I will let you live." Glumov thanks Pylon. Pylon further starts to sneer and says to Glumov, "In exchange, from now on, whenever you speak, you must bark at the end of every sentence. That way, everyone will know what a dog you are. Go ahead, try it. Did you not understand what I said? Your head really is empty. It doesn't deserve to stay on your shoulders." Upon hearing this statement, while Glumov is sniffing and hiccuping, he hesitantly thanks Pylon. "Thank you so much for being so merciful, Woof," Pylon tells Glumov. "The barking doesn't seem to suit you." This statement causes Glumov to spring up, and he questions Pylon. "Are you rescinding your order?" Pylon explains to Glumov, "The rough sounds unnecessarily cute. Go with Woof instead." Glumov becomes shocked upon hearing this. Meanwhile, Pylon grins at Glumov and commands him, "Do it." Glumov then starts to woof, as Pylon commanded him to. Pylon also mentions to all of the nobles, "Please listen. From now on, whenever you speak with Glumov and he doesn't add woof woof at the end of his sentence, you should let him know." This statement makes the nobles speechless at first. After a while, they agree with Pylon. Pylon then turns towards Leafy. Leafy notices this and gives him a thumbs up while winking at him. Upon noticing this reaction, Pylon slightly chuckles and states to Leafy, "I need some fresh air." Leafy tells him, "I understand." We then transition to the next scene, where we see Leafy and Pylon outside on the balcony. As Leafy is glancing around, she questions Pylon, "Do you want me to leave you alone?" Pylon reassures Leafy, "It's fine. If you go in there alone, the nobles will swarm you,